Today we are going to discuss approval voting. What is approval voting? Approval voting is an electoral system in which voters can vote for all of the candidates that they approve of, regardless of how many winners a race will have. The candidate with the most total votes wins. In this example approval ballot, there will be one winner for mayor. Voters are instructed to vote for one or more candidates. All of these completed ballots are valid in an approval vote. Voters may choose to only vote for one candidate, or voters may choose to vote for multiple candidates. Where is approval voting used today? There are only 2 places in the U.S. using approval voting. Fargo, North Dakota became the very first implementation of approval voting in the U.S. The use of approval voting in Fargo was approved by a citizen ballot measure in November 2018. Reform Fargo led the campaign for the ballot measure, which was approved with 63% support. It applies to the election of all city officials. Approval voting was used for the first time in Fargo in June 2020. The results of Fargo's first approval vote for city commissioner are shown here. Their city commissioner seats are at large, and they had 2 open seats, so there were 2 winners in this race. Both winners had more than 50% approval. In previous plurality elections, candidates were frequently winning with under 20% of the votes. John Strand was an incumbent and had won his previous 2016 seat with only 15% of the vote in a plurality election. Note that this implementation is using block approval voting when applied to MultiWinner elections. Block approval voting, like block plurality voting, does not result in proportional representation. But there are other ways to implement approval voting for MultiWinner elections that do support proportional representation. Where else is approval voting used? St. Louis, Missouri passed Proposition D this November 2020 with 68% support. Proposition D enacts approval voting for the primary race for mayor, comptroller, president of the Board of Aldermen, and individual alderman races. The top 2 winners of the primary then go on to the general election, which uses plurality voting. The campaign for Proposition D was led by STL Approves and supported by LWV of STL Metro. There is one main national group advocating for the use of approval voting in the U.S. This group is the Center for Election Science. The Center for Election Science has been funding local campaigns for approval voting, including both Reform Fargo and STL Approves. What are the benefits of approval voting? Approval voting is easy to administer. It doesn't differ that much from plurality and requires only minor voting system updates. Votes can be tallied and reported locally and centrally. Approval voting is more likely to result in a majority-supported winner than plurality voting. Approval voting decreases the number of wasted votes. More ballots in an approval vote will contribute to the win of a candidate and therefore not be considered wasted. Approval voting encourages positive campaigning. Since candidates know that voters can vote for more than one candidate, it discourages candidates from negative attacks. A candidate that negatively attacks a voter's favorite is decreasing their chances of being included on that voter's ballot. Approval voting avoids vote splitting, also known as the spoiler effect. Since voters can choose all of their favorites, their vote doesn't get split. Approval voting increases visibility of third-party and independent support. Even if these candidates don't win, when their true support is visible, winning candidates are more likely to pay attention to the platforms and voters of third-party and independent candidates. Certain implementations of approval voting can lead to proportional representation in multi-winner elections. However, neither U.S. implementation currently includes this, and doing so does require further voting machine capabilities. What are some concerns brought up about approval voting? Approval voting does not guarantee a majority-supported winner. It is likely, but not guaranteed. Approval voting does not allow voters to indicate preference between candidates other than approve, don't approve. Voters can't indicate which is their most preferred candidate. Approval voting violates the later no harm principle. Adding an additional candidate to one's ballot could harm the voter's previously selected candidates. The simplest implementation of approval voting does not support proportional representation. And finally, bullet voting is often noted as a concern in approval voting. Bullet voting is a type of tactical voting in which voters choose to only vote for one candidate in an approval election. Voters may do this to avoid adding votes to candidates that could harm their favorite. If bullet voting occurs at a high enough rate, it would turn an approval vote into a plurality vote and negate many of the benefits of approval voting. There is not yet enough data from the limited implementations of approval elections to determine the likelihood of bullet voting. In closing, approval voting is more likely to result in a consensus candidate, a candidate with the broadest support. And implementations of approval voting don't have to be all or nothing. Implementations might apply only to primaries, only to multi-winner elections, or only to single-winner elections. Now that we have some background information on approval voting, let's move on to questions and discussion.